My brother left his bride at the altar after he found out she was cheating on him and pregnant with her lover's baby. He grabbed me, his best man, and another groomsman, and we drank at the park across town. Runaway Bride, True Stories, Part 1. Hi, I'm Jasmine, and I've got some crazy true stories for you today. Some of them are more funny, embarrassing, while others are much more intense. I literally scoured Reddit and Quora, and these are my top picks, which get juicier as we go along. But first, like and subscribe, or else this will be in your bed tonight. So this is my mum's story. A few weeks before her wedding, my mum found out that her fiancé was lying about his whereabouts. He was actually partying with friends and several other women at a hotel, and she caught him red-handed in a hot tub at 1 a.m. cozying up with twin sisters. Needless to say, she immediately called off the wedding. So fast forward 3 years to when she meets my dad. Things start to get serious and he introduces her to the family over dinner. But things took an awkward turn when she recognized his sisters as the twins she caught her ex-fiancé in the hot tub with. She didn't let this get in the way though, and my parents were married soon after, but unfortunately it didn't last long. They just weren't compatible together, and also unsurprisingly, my dad wasn't the most faithful man either. I guess it must run in the family. I was at a co-worker's wedding some years ago, and we sat awkwardly waiting for a good 45 minutes for the bride and the bridesmaids to show up. No one really knew why, but later at the reception, after quite a few drinks, it was revealed to me that the bride was struck by a case of anxiety-induced diarrhea. Apparently, she ran away because it was more honourable than pooping her dress in front of the crowd. So not so much runaway bride, more bride with the runs. I was engaged, so I was almost a bride. And let me tell you, there were several straws. A few were before the engagement. He was living in his car and was not financially stable. No judgment there, but just to give you a bit of context. The first straw was him wanting me to send selfies of myself, proving where I was at all times and what I was wearing, which 99% of the time was my work clothes. Black long sleeve shirts and pants. And if I didn't text back fast enough, then apparently I was with another man. Then a month into the relationship, he demanded a key to my condo so he could see me whenever he wanted. The final straw was when he proposed, got down on one knee and said, "I knew we were meant to be from the moment we matched. On Tinder, go figure. I love you so much, and now I can show everyone that I own you. Will you marry me?" Boy, bye. And that was 3 months into the relationship. Bear in mind, I never met his family, and he'd only ever met my mother during one of his unplanned ambushes. I immediately said no and walked away, but he refused to take no for an answer and constantly called me. He even tried getting into my condo countless times, until it got so bad I had to change my number and get a restraining order against him. He was, and probably still is, crazy AF. Wow. Yeah, that would be my nightmare. I ran away from a proposal. He was diagnosed bipolar and came from a very unstable family. I considered the idea of getting married to him, but someday in the far future, when we were on more stable ground. 1 month later, he proposed. Not even in a very eventful way. I'm not saying that it has to be, I just mean I didn't see it coming. We're at his house, as usual, and he was playing video games and I was watching TV on my laptop. After we ate our takeout pizza, he knelt down on one leg and proposed with a ring. I saw it all flash before my eyes, getting married and being stuck to this person for the rest of my life. And I froze. I didn't want to say yes, but then I was also too afraid to say no. And of course, he took my silence as rejection and started screaming at me about how I was ungrateful and how could I possibly refuse him. This was then followed by his parents joining in the screaming. I burst into tears, grabbed my purse and ran out of the house. When I got home, I was shaking with anger actually, for the first time. Of course, he tried to make amends and call me over and over again, but I refused to speak to him for quite a while. Eventually, when I'd cooled down a bit, we talked, and I told him I didn't want to be with a person who was so unstable, and that he needed to get professional help and get better before we could work. He of course never did, and thank God I haven't heard from him since. Whew, yeah, sounds like she dodged a bullet there. When I was about 12 years old, smartphones became a thing, and I started talking to this man online. He promised to take me away from my family. We talked late into the night, every single day, and we soon fell in love with each other, about as much as a 12-year-old could with a 40-year-old man. He told me he'd make me a mother of many kids, and planned to get me pregnant ASAP. One day he drove down from Tennessee to pick me up. He was outside my house, waiting for me, so I put on my favourite white dress and went out to meet him. Then I froze. My mum had just had another baby, and I started thinking about all the things I would miss out on, them growing up and finishing school. So I ran back inside and never saw him again. Oh my god. Yeah, that one gave me chills down my spine. I've waited a very long time to share this. Years ago I was a single mum, working hard but not getting ahead at all. I met this good guy type, who was an architect who had a great sense of humour, and we dated for about a year and got engaged. Then the unthinkable happens, and this is where I am the a-hole in many people's minds. So 10 months before our wedding, he was in a horrible car accident. He broke both of his femurs and his back. He was also a poorly controlled diabetic, so his healing was significantly delayed. He ended up confined to an electric wheelchair, and since his legs were in cast from hip to ankle, his legs had to be extended straight out in front of him at all times. I really tried to stick by him, but he made it frickin' impossible. He did nothing but piss, moan and bitch about every single thing that the doctors told him. He refused physical therapy, wouldn't take his medication correctly, didn't cooperate with wound care, wouldn't take his insulin correctly, all the things that make for a horrible patient and an even worse person to be around. Through all this, our planned wedding was still going ahead as planned, which was mostly due to his family's peer pressure. He was moved from the hospital to a live-in group home, where he only declined. Wearing pants was difficult, so he wore nothing on his bottom half for months, and was just content with just having a bedsheet over his lap, no matter what. His moods were totally uncontrollable. He became violent and really verbally aggressive. One time he missed a Final Jeopardy question, and he threw his open urinal at me. Fast forward to my wedding day. The staff of the group home went above and beyond to decorate the backyard and make this day so special for everyone. It really was lovely. Our families were gathered and the pianist was playing and my dad was by my side. They opened the door for us to start walking down the aisle, and there he sat, with his legs straight out and hospital socks sticking out from under his blanket. I froze. I told my dad I just needed to go back in the house. Once we were out of earshot from everyone, I told my dad I just couldn't do it. And my dad simply smiled, saying thank God. He signalled for my kids to come over, loaded them and me up in his car, and we drove off. We ended up moving a state away, closer to my family and thriving. The groom, however, ended up in and out of several facilities and has never left a wheelchair since. I fully realised that he was suffering from a physical, emotional, and mental pain that I will never comprehend. But I just knew I couldn't raise my kids in that type of environment, and my first commitment was to them. I went on to finish my own degree, and my kids are now adults, and I can thankfully say that no one has thrown urine at me since. My friend was getting married to this gorgeous girl. She was a legit 10 out of 10, and we were all excited for him because he wasn't the best looking dude, but he was a talented guy with a multitude of talents. I mean, he even designed a watering system for his home garden. So the day of the wedding went as normal. We all meet up, talked it out, talked to the girl's family, all of whom were weird, to say the least. They weren't weird as in culty weird, more like I'd rather not be here weird. Cue the wedding starts. Flower girls walk down the aisle, the bride follows, yada yada. But right before the vows, our dude bails. Just bolts out of the closest door, leaving the bride standing there. Then the bride, her father and mother, I kid you not, pull out guns and run out the door to try and kill him, I guess. But he's already so far gone that none of their shots are hitting him. The bride's father ended up in jail. Her mother died of a heart attack a year or so later, and the bride becomes a very minor influencer. So the reason he left was because she was extremely and emotionally manipulative and controlling. She forced him to keep a chart of where he was going, what time he should be back, who he was talking to, how much money he had in his bank account, and basically she followed his every move. She refused to let him sleep in the same room as her, and if she caught him sleeping on the couch, she would slap him awake. During their 3-year relationship, they only slept with each other twice, and apparently she was literally like a dead fish in bed. He also never had any kind of responsibility in her life. Her parents bought her a house, a car, and pretty much anything she wanted. Then when she was bored of things, she just trashed them, like her car, which she crashed when she got sick of it. Or her puppy, who mysteriously got lost one day, which is horrifying considering that she attempted to kill my friend's cat multiple times by pouring boiling water on it. Long story short, the biatch was crazy. A friend of mine didn't know she was the bride until she was halfway down the aisle. Her parents had arranged a marriage for her, which is common in her culture, but it's not normally done as an ambush. They just told her that the family had been invited to a cousin's wedding. They arrived at church just before the bride was scheduled to walk down the aisle, and my friend, embarrassed and thinking that she's late, wanted to slip in the back. Her father, however, took her arm and kind of forced her to walk up the aisle. It wasn't until they were halfway up the aisle that she stopped and realized that everyone was looking at her, smiling and crying tears of joy. Stunned, she turned around to one of her aunts in the pew next to her and asked who was getting married. The whole church went silent, and then the aunt shouted at my friend's father saying, "You can't be serious. You planned a wedding for your daughter and just expect her to go along with it? Have the two of them even met?" The whole room began chattering about the situation, but the father stood his ground, cleared his throat, and told his daughter to keep walking. The aunt grabbed my friend, pulled her into the pew, pushed her past the row of people, and they both ran out of the church. Her parents disowned her after that, and she moved in with that aunt. You got this far, so why not watch the next part?